In 2023, a young woman was out for a jog when she spotted this man running in her direction. Although the plaster mask and all-white clothing were strange, the red stains around his mouth was what motivated her to sprint in the opposite direction. However, this seemed to only make the masked man run after her faster. When he finally got close to her, he simply yelled out "Merry Christmas" and continued his run. Although she was relieved to see him pass her, she couldn't help but feel confused after the incident. After all, it was August, nowhere near Christmas time, and the fact that the man chased after her so angrily just to yell about Christmas left her with a bad feeling in her gut. Unfortunately, these are just a few of the questions surrounding this man. Rumors began spreading that this was simply a homeless man with mental issues, but then the question of how he keeps his clothing so white was raised. Perhaps the most important question is why the mouth of his mask is stained with a red substance. As time went on, more and more people kept spotting the man in Mexico. In most of these videos, he seems to be approachable and relatively friendly. Ultimately, the white masked man seems to be harmless, but that doesn't make it any less creepy.
You have this 14-year-old kid, a child, that ended the life of his 24-year-old algebra teacher for seemingly no reason at all. Today's case takes place in 2013 in a place called Danvers, Massachusetts. Colleen was a 24-year-old algebra teacher at Danvers High School. Growing up, she was really close to her family. She had her mom, dad, and 2 siblings. And you know those kids that enjoy school? They're good at it. They like doing it. They like doing their homework. Colleen was that person. She was always very good at school. She looked up to her teachers so much that she decided that she wanted to be a teacher one day. So she decided from a very young age that was going to be the career path that she was going to choose. She went to college for it, had a great time, made a lot of friends, made good grades, and became a teacher actually right out of school. She was offered her dream job, and she was so excited. She felt so lucky. She couldn't believe that she was lucky enough to get her dream job. She was looking forward to it. She accepted a position to be an algebra teacher at Danvers High School. And because she loved her teachers, which is why she decided to become a teacher in the first place, she wanted to put a lot of effort into making real relationships with her students, making her classroom feel like a safe space. She wanted to make sure that she was a positive influence on her students and that they really enjoyed the time that was spent in her classroom. October 2013, Colleen gets a new student in her class. His name is Philip Chisholm. He's 14 years old. He's originally from Tennessee, but his parents are going through a divorce, so his mom decides to move them to Massachusetts for a fresh start. So October 2013, he attends Colleen's class. Immediately, Colleen notices that he's having a hard time getting adjusted. He's having a hard time making friends. He's having a tough time with his academics. However, with sports, he's doing very well. He played soccer and was very talented in that regard. But when it came to math, he was not necessarily the best. Because Colleen cared so much and she wanted to make sure that her students were comfortable in the classroom and that they felt like they were learning, she offered to help him. October 22nd, 2013, she asked Philip to stay behind so they could review assignments and so she could help him. Philip usually walked home, so his mom was expecting him home right after school, but he didn't get home right away, so she thought maybe he had soccer practice. She didn't get worried right away. 2 hours or so went by. Philip had not texted or called, so she was confused because they were new to town. He hadn't really had the chance to make many friends. It's not like he would have gone to a friend's house without telling her. So she calls the police and lets them know that she can't find her son. Police ask her where his last known location was, and she says that she dropped him off at school that morning and has not heard from him since then. Police make their way over to the school, decide to get the principal to send out a mass email to all the teachers saying, hey, there's this new kid in town. He just started at our school. He's missing. He was last seen at the school. Does anyone know anything, or has anyone seen him? The principal does luckily get a response right away, but it's not about Philip. It's another math teacher, and she's like, I'm not sure where Philip is. However, Colleen has been missing as well for a couple hours, and no one knows where she is. She says that her parents, Colleen's parents, had actually contacted the police as well, and her dad was also at the school now looking to see if Colleen's car was still there. Her car was there. So it's around 9 p.m. now. School was out at 4 p.m. So now it's 9 p.m. There's 2 missing people. They have not been seen since around the same time. They were last both seen at the school, and they start connecting the dots, figure out that Colleen is Phillips's teacher, wondering if they could be together. They go to Colleen's classroom and they see that her stuff is missing. So her car is there, but all of her stuff is gone. So she obviously had the intentions of leaving for the day, but didn't get to. It's just not making sense. The police then decides to reach out to both cell phone providers for both Phillips's phone as well as Colleen's phone to get the last known location of the cell phones. The last known location of Colleen's phone is about a 20-minute walk away from the school. The last known location from Phillips's phone is a 30-minute drive at a movie theater. There are now 3 separate teams looking at 3 separate locations. One group is looking at the location between Colleen's phone and the school, so that 20-minute walk. The second group is searching at the movie theater nearby there for Phillip, and the third group is searching inside the actual school building. In their searches outside, they only find Colleen's purse, but it's empty in a random street somewhere nearby the school. Inside the school though, specifically in the girls' bathroom that was nearest to Colleen's classroom, they found what looked like blood smears on the floor. They gather up all security footage from the entire school, and what they found is so disturbing. The suspicious footage starts around 3 p.m. Colleen is seen walking out of her classroom. She's smiling. She looks like she's in a good mood. She walks towards the girls' bathroom and then goes inside. Shortly after, 14-year-old Phillip steps out of Colleen's classroom. He looks kind of confused. He's looking at Colleen walking down towards the girls' bathroom, and then he goes inside of the classroom, steps back out, but this time he has his hood up and he's sort of covering his face. He makes his way down the hall and into the girls' bathroom. He's also carrying something that looks like gloves. He walks into the girls' bathroom behind Colleen, and there is no more footage. There's obviously no cameras inside the bathroom. There's no more footage for 11 minutes until a different girl, a student, walks in, and then she immediately walks right out. A little after those 11 minutes, when the girl walked in and walked out, Phillip walks out of the bathroom. He walks fast outside of the school. He changes from a blue hoodie into a red one. He puts that hoodie up as well as a mask. And then he's seen running around like a maniac everywhere around the school, like different hallways up and down. And I mean running. He was just running around looking confused, almost as if he was looking for something, but also didn't know what he was doing at the same time. It was weird. He's doing that for 10 minutes, and then he walks back out of the school, walks back in with a trash can. One of those trash cans that you probably have outside your house that like roll on the 2 back wheels. Takes that trash can into the girls' bathroom, the same bathroom where Colleen had walked into, is in there for 6 minutes, and then is seen walking out with the trash can. He's looking so suspicious now because he has his hood up, but he also has a mask, and he's carrying the trash can, dragging it outside of the school, and it looks heavier now, as if there was something inside of it. There's cameras outside of the school as well, so he's seen walking out of the school with the trash can, dragging it out around the school, and then disappears like across the street and into some nearby woods. He then comes out of the woods a few minutes later with no trash can, a different outfit on, and is running back to the school. He's back inside the school building. He goes into a different bathroom, a boys' bathroom, walks out again with a different outfit on, then walks back to the girls' bathroom he was initially in, is there for a second, and walks right out. He finally then runs out, and again, he's running. You guys should look up the footage of him. There's like camera footage on the internet of him running around. He runs out of the school for the final time with no shoes and no socks on. The cops see all of this and they're like, all right, immediately we need to find him, number 1, and number 2, we need to find that trash can. It's around midnight now. That same night, the cops get a call from a man that was driving saying that he saw a young boy walking down the highway with his hood up and just looking a little bit suspicious, confused, and just it's a weird sighting. So they asked the cops to come and make sure that he's okay. This location is around 5 miles away from the movie theater, and the cops get there, and the boy that is walking around with his hood up is Phillip Chisholm. The cops search him on the spot, and on his physical body he has a bloody knife, and then inside of his backpack he has a bloody box cutter, and most importantly he has a pair of female underwear in the backpack, as well as Colleen's credit card and ID. They ask him why, and initially he says, oh, I found the ID and the card on the floor, and I recognized that it was my teacher, so I was going to bring them back to her the next day at school. And then he changes his story and says, actually, I broke into her car and stole her wallet. They ask him why he has a knife and a box cutter and why they have blood on them. They ask him, whose blood is this? And he just says, the girls. Right after, they take him into questioning, but he's refusing to say anything. They actually call his mom. His mom meets them at the station when he's being questioned, but he doesn't say anything. He just looks very uncomfortable and is not helpful at all. Meanwhile, the cops are still searching the woods. It's around 3 a.m. now. They find a pair of bloody gloves. Nearby is the trash can just filled with nothing but blood, and nearby that is Colleen's body under a pile of leaves. She's absolutely covered in stab wounds. Her throat looks like it's been slit. There's just blood everywhere, and she's naked from the waist down. Also weird, and I couldn't find any more information about this, but next to her body is a note that has written on it, "I hate you all." Obviously it was placed there on purpose, and obviously I assume that Philip wrote it, but it was just kind of a weird detail. Colleen's autopsy reveals that she was stabbed at least 16 times. She did have her throat slit. She was strangled, SA'd more than once by not only a human, but also objects, including a tree branch that was actually still inside of her body when they found it. The autopsy also, in a very, very sad detail, revealed that Colleen was alive throughout the entire attack, and she passed away due to blood loss only after she had been sitting there in the woods, hurting, alone, scared, terrified. She bled out on her own. The cops, obviously, after seeing the footage, had already believed this to be true, but they have now confirmed that 14-year-old, 14, that is so little, Philip Chisholm SA'd his algebra teacher in the bathroom, stabbed her to death, robbed her wallet, and then left her body in the woods. And I say robbed her wallet because remember, he took Colleen's credit card. Obviously we know that because it was in his backpack, but then he went to the movies, which is why his cell phone pinged there, then went to Wendy's, got food to eat, all charging all of this on Colleen's card, and then went on the walk on the highway, which is where he was found. Philip is then officially charged with the murder of Colleen Ritzer. The biggest question now is why? Why did he do this? What made him do this? What was the motive? Also, that one student, the girl that walked in the bathroom and walked right out when Philip and Colleen were in the bathroom, later says that when she walked in, she saw just like underneath the stall, she just saw naked legs and then a pile of clothes. So she assumed that she just walked in on someone changing. She didn't think anything bad happened. She just thought that someone was changing in the stall and she didn't want them to feel embarrassed, which is why she walked out right away. And if for some reason, which I very much doubt that any of you guys will think this, start to feel bad for him and you're like, oh, he's just 14, he's a kid, maybe he was traumatized, he didn't know any better. No, because first of all, they did psychiatric tests on him before trial to make sure that he was fit for trial and see if there was anything mentally off with him. He passed all of them. He was just fine. The doctors literally said they could not find any mental health issues in the kid at all. He also showed so quickly that he was not going to learn from this because he was awaiting trial at a detention center. And when he was there before trial, like the attack with Colleen had just happened, he tried to do it again at the detention center. He tried to attack a female staff member in a stall room with a pencil, was trying to stab her with a pencil and just started beating her up. So obviously this kid, something is very wrong with him and he's not going to learn his lesson. In 2015 at the trial, he pled not guilty. Jury took 2 days to deliberate and they found him guilty. He had no reaction at all, just no emotion the whole time. He was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 40 years.
She thought that she was getting into her Uber, but she was actually climbing into a car drove by a man that was about to viciously kill her. Samantha was a student at the University of South Carolina, where she was studying political science. She was exceptionally bright and very dedicated to her education. She was actually planning on transferring to a different university where she managed to get a scholarship in international law. Alongside being super smart, Samantha was a pretty popular, bubbly young woman and was also a sorority house member. On the 28th of March 2019, 21-year-old Samantha was having a night out with her friends in downtown Columbia, celebrating their graduation. This area of Columbia was very popular with all of her fellow students because there were streets upon streets filled with buzzing bars and amazing restaurants. Shortly after 2 a.m, now on the 29th of March, Samantha decided that this was the end of her night. She left the bar where her and her friends were drinking, which was called Bird Dog Bar. She ordered an Uber and stood outside of the bar waiting for it to arrive. CCTV would capture Samantha standing outside waiting for her Uber when a black car pulls up alongside her. Assuming that this was her Uber, Samantha opened the door, climbed inside, and then the car drove off. This would be the last time that anyone other than her killer saw Samantha alive. 14 hours after stepping into that black car, the body of Samantha would be discovered in a field by turkey farmers over 65 miles away, and it was clear as day that she'd been the victim of a heinous murder. Her autopsy would show that she had sustained over 120 wounds. There was actually so many wounds that the pathologist could not count them all. She had been stabbed all across her head, neck, upper body and chest area, legs, hands and feet. At least one of the stab wounds to the head was delivered with so much force that the knife actually went straight through Samantha's skull and pierced her brain. She had also sustained defensive wounds, showing that she had fought for her life against her attacker. While being attacked, Samantha had used one of her hands as a shield, and as the attacker was stabbing her, the knife went straight through her hand. Her cause of death was ruled from being from multiple stab wounds. Samantha would have bled profusely from all of 120 plus of her wounds, and the pathologist that conducted the autopsy believed that it could have took Samantha up to 20 agonizing minutes to die. She had felt every single strike of the knife. Police were quite quickly able to narrow down their suspects, arresting Nathaniel Rowland on suspicion of Samantha's murder, and eerily, when the police went to arrest him, he was in his black car creeping around the area of downtown Columbia where Samantha had been picked up from. When the police approached Nathaniel with intent to arrest him, he took off. He fled from police on foot, but they were able to catch up to him and were able to successfully arrest him. During their investigation, detectives were able to uncover a mountain of evidence against Nathaniel. To start off with, the black car that he had picked Samantha up in that was caught on the CCTV footage was registered to him. All they had to do was search the license plate and his name came up. During a search of the car, blood, bleach and wet wipes would be discovered inside alongside Samantha's phone. And a horrifying detail about the car that I could not get out of my mind was that Nathaniel had the child lock activated on the back doors. So when Samantha got into the car, when and if she eventually realised that this man wasn't her Uber driver, she was locked inside, unable to open the door and escape. After interviewing Nathaniel's girlfriend, they were able to uncover a double-edged knife that he had disposed of at her house. This knife had traces of Samantha's blood on it. At some point, I'm guessing quite quickly after his arrest, Nathaniel had his fingernails cut by the officers, and from underneath the fingernail clippings, they were able to recover DNA that again belonged to Samantha. So had Nathaniel scratched her? Was this trace DNA? I'm really not sure, but the DNA was there. Data from both Nathaniel's and Samantha's phone showed that they were together and they were travelling together shortly after 2 a.m. when Samantha was picked up by that black car. And as I mentioned earlier, when he was arrested, Nathaniel was creeping around that area of Columbia where he had picked Samantha up from. So was he out there looking for another victim? And the final point that I'm going to make, because there really was mountains of evidence, the place that Samantha's body was found, again 65 miles away, just so happened to be the place that Nathaniel grew up in and happened to know very well. At his trial in July 2021, despite pleading not guilty, Nathaniel Rowland would be found guilty of the kidnap and murder of Samantha Josephson. He would be handed a sentence of life imprisonment, and despite this verdict, Nathaniel has never admitted his guilt. He has never given a motive or a reason for murdering Samantha, and his family believe him. They believe that Nathaniel is an innocent man.
Imagine being wrongfully convicted of murdering your own baby. This is the incredible story of how the TV show Unsolved Mysteries helped to exonerate an innocent mother. Patricia Stallings was born in the 1960s in Missouri. She actually had a really unfortunate childhood and was born into poverty, and at some point she even experienced homelessness. When she was young, she fell pregnant and had to give her child up just due to financial issues and the fact that she couldn't even look after herself. She did the right thing for her and she gave the baby up for adoption. Now, when she reached her 20s, her luck began to change and she managed to get a stable job working in a shop. She ended up meeting a man called David and the pair fell in love and got married shortly after. They got a little house together in Jefferson County, right by a lake, and it was just the ideal future that she'd always planned. Patricia then fell pregnant again. This time though, obviously her circumstances were completely different and she just knew the pair were ready to be parents. She knew that this time round she was able to be an amazing mum. In April 1989, she gave birth to their son Ryan. However, the pair's dream turned into a nightmare when Ryan was just 3 months old. He became really unwell and was struggling to breathe and being really sick. Now, Patricia and David did what any good parents would do and they got their son medical attention straight away. He ended up in hospital where the doctors and nurses ended up discovering what they thought were high levels of ethylene glycol in Ryan's blood. Now, in layman's terms, this is very toxic and it's stuff that's found in antifreeze. The staff at the hospital began to get immediately very suspicious of the baby's parents. They alerted authorities and the pair were interrogated at length at a time when they were obviously very distressed because their child was dying. The pair were split up and they were just bombarded with so many questions. They started accusing them of poisoning the child. The authorities would only let the parents see their son under strict supervision, and then on one occasion Patricia was allowed to feed him. Following on from this, his condition got worse and worse, and the staff put 2 and 2 together and immediately presumed that this was due to Patricia being left alone with him. Police decided to search the pair's home, and lo and behold they did find antifreeze. They felt that this meant that they were immediately guilty, despite the fact that a lot of people do have antifreeze in their homes. As Ryan's condition progressively got worse, Patricia was banned from seeing him. This was even as he was passing away. After his death, Patricia was immediately charged with murder. Interestingly, while she was awaiting trial, Patricia was actually pregnant with the pair's second child. Things then got really complicated as she gave birth to this child that they named David Jr., and he was really ill too. He was immediately placed for foster care, but interestingly had very disturbing symptoms, just like his brother Ryan had had. Doctors diagnosed David Jr. with a very rare genetic disorder called MMA. Interestingly, when people have this disorder, their body produces an acid that's very similar to that substance found in antifreeze. Now, David Jr. got the medical care he needed, but it did shine a light on the fact that the parents might actually be innocent. Had a huge mistake caused an innocent mother to not only be charged with murder, but also miss her dying child's final hours. Infuriatingly, the judge in Patricia's case refused to let the defense present this as a theory. At the age of 25, Patricia was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for Ryan's death. That's when, thankfully, in 1991, the show Unsolved Mysteries covered Ryan's case. The episode covered the theory that Ryan may have died from MMA. As luck would have it, a biochemist saw the episode and offered to test Ryan's blood. This caused a huge breakthrough. Ryan was found to have high levels of propionic acid just like his brother. Patricia had not murdered him with antifreeze and she'd been locked up for nothing. Thankfully, she was released from prison and David Jr. was released back into his parents' care. Patricia later sued the hospital and won millions of dollars. This is one of the most disgusting and evil cases I've heard of recently. On the 7th of December 2017, teacher Thelma Boinville was desperately trying to make some extra money. She was doing a cleaning job to earn extra money for her family, and the job suited her as her 8-year-old could come along and play while she worked. This was really handy as it meant she didn't have to fork out for childcare. She set out cleaning some holiday homes on the day in question and her daughter waited in the car. The spot was a lovely scenic place called Kelky Beach. However, instead of walking in on a normal holiday rental to clean, she walked into a nightmare. Stephen Brown and his girlfriend Hayley Dangerand were in the middle of robbing the place. They were scouring through drawers and wardrobes, hunting for valuables to steal. With Thelma walking in, their plan had been foiled. They decided they needed to dispose of their only witness. The evil pair tied up the mother, whose daughter waited unsuspectingly in the car outside. They used a machete, a knife, and a hammer to murder the innocent woman. But the horror was far from over. They exited the holiday home and came across Thelma's young daughter waiting in the car. They
They callously told the young girl, "We killed your mum," and then bound her up and gagged her. Sickeningly, they then took the 8-year-old into the home where they'd killed her mum and left her there tied up. The 2 Australian tourists who were renting the holiday home then came back and found the crime scene. The 2 killers were tracked down hours later in Thelma's car, which they'd stolen and driven off in. Hayley was actually wearing her victim's earrings at the time. They actually begged for the officers to just shoot them and end their lives, but they wouldn't get away that easily. Thelma's husband, Kevin, wasn't actually allowed to see his wife's body due to the extent of her injuries. The autopsy revealed that she'd fought for her life, with many defensive wounds indicating a struggle. Since the murder, Stephen and Hayley have both tried to blame each other. Stephen was found guilty of second-degree murder and apparently showed no emotion as the verdict was read out. Hayley is currently awaiting trial.
She went to meet a friend and never returned home. 25 years later, her case still remains unsolved. This is the unsolved disappearance and murder of Hannah de Turville. 15-year-old Hannah de Turville was known as a outgoing, well-known, well-loved fixture in the London neighbourhood where she lived on Harrow Road in Queen's Park, North London. Hannah's mother even said that people in the local shops knew who she was because she was just such a friendly, outgoing, nice person. Hannah's mother, Jean, said that she was proud to be Hannah's mother. On the early afternoon of the 2nd of January 1998, Hannah went to the shop for her mother, Jean, to go and buy some gold thread. The shopkeeper heard Hannah having an argument with somebody outside. When the shopkeeper asked Hannah if she was okay and who the argument was with, Hannah replied it was just some crazy person. At around 7 p.m. that night, Hannah, dressed in a grey bomber jacket, orange jeans and red Reeboks, asked her mother if she could go and meet a friend. Jean agreed but told her not to be back late. Sadly, Hannah would never make it home. Her mother, Jean, alerted police straight away when she didn't turn home that evening, and frustratingly, the police did not proactively look for Hannah 2 weeks after she was missing. This left Hannah's family and friends handing out flyers trying to find Hannah themselves. They knew that it was completely out of character for Hannah just to disappear. On the 24th of January 1998, 3 weeks after Hannah had disappeared, an anonymous call came into the gay and lesbian switchboard. The caller remained anonymous and told the operator that her body had been found near a golf course in Horston Hill. This area was actually known to dog walkers and also for gay people to meet up. The caller has never come forward to this day. Police said that the caller of this phone call may not have come forward because he was scared to come out about his sexuality rather than having anything to do with Hannah's killing. Hannah was found with over 20 stab wounds to her neck and her face. She had not been SA'd nor had she been robbed. It was thought that she was killed 12 hours from the time of her disappearance and had been kept somewhere else for several days before being dumped in this wooded area where she was discovered. The police said it would have taken at least 2 people to carry her body to where she was found. Hannah's friends were obviously questioned because remember she was meant to be meeting a friend that night, but most of her friends came forward and said no, it wasn't me she was meeting with, or nor did I see Hannah. Police believe that Hannah's killer were familiar with Hannah and the area and most likely had access to a car to manoeuvre Hannah's body. The police are pretty sure that someone knows something about Hannah's abduction and murder. Even after 25 years, there has been little to no information about what happened to Hannah that night, or even who she met up with. It has been speculated that some people have talked about Hannah's case in the local area, but are too afraid to go to police. It's almost like there's a wall of silence around Hannah's killing.
A 16-year-old has been killed after an argument over McDonald's sweet and sour sauce. On the 27th of August, police responded to a call of a 16-year-old girl being treated in hospital for stab wounds. The teenager Naima Ligon from Maryland then sadly passed away from her injuries. It's believed that the fatal stabbing took place outside of a McDonald's in Washington, D.C. A detective announced that the stabbing occurred after a dispute over sweet and sour sauce between 3 girls outside of the restaurant. It's believed that they were all part of a group that had been to a party previously. Naima and another girl had apparently been assaulting the other teenager first, and she didn't appear to fight back. However, when the pair tried to get into a vehicle, it's believed that the other girl came at Naima with a knife. The girl was charged with second-degree murder, and they have found the murder weapon.